Welcome to The Strategic Edge, the podcast for entrepreneurs and business owners who want a competitive edge in the market. They want to be seen as the expert in their industry, and they're looking for cutting edge and innovative strategies that work across industries to help them scale their business like a boss. My name is Carden, and I'm your host. Welcome to the show. Hey everyone, it's Carden here, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of The Strategic Edge. Today I have Tina Asher with me. She is the owner of Build You Up Consulting, and I have to say I'm really happy to have her on because with the current situation in 2020, we are all experiencing change. And today we're going to talk a lot about the fear of change, which is her expertise. And I think it couldn't be a more perfect time to have her on this show. So Tina, welcome to my show.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here, Ann.
I am excited to have you here. So this is a really organic interview. I just want you to share a little bit about your business and really how you got into your business. So if you want to just take a few minutes to do that for our listeners.
Sure. So I've always been very addicted to the change of aspects, right? So going through life, we changed many times. I lived in a lot of different areas, had several different career opportunities, and through a corporate stint of 30 years, I went through everything from a customer service to high-level management to managing people remotely. And there was constant change, obviously, with a lot of people with new management styles and the bad apple that you're managing and so forth. And through an acquisition, I always loved the coaching aspect of it. And when I decided to open my own business, I realized my passion is always about inspiring other people to be the best that they can be. And that's a little bit about the background there.
Awesome. And she has a brand new book that came out. You said in August, your book came out?
Yes, I just released a book on teetering. So I wrote the book around a combination of my journey of successes and failures and some of the things that I stubbed my toe against, and then with some client stories on what they stubbed their toe against when they were facing change in their life. And as a career coach, there are a lot of coaches out there these days. And I think what we find is I am from an abundance category, not a scarcity. And I think we all have our own experiences that make us a unique coach to the right client. So in the book, we talk about going through the process of change and how not to be fearful of that. Because in the course that I teach, we talk about there's really several stages to really focus on a change and how is it aligned with my core values? Mm-hmm. What kind of impact will it have not only on myself, but the people around me, the people I love, the people I care about, the people I work with. Is it aligned? What will I learn from this experience, right? What are the consequences if I do or I don't take it? Mm-hmm. And how will I evolve from this opportunity? And sometimes those changes work out for the best, right. But even when they don't, I think there's more learning from that experience. Failure is not failure. It's an opportunity for us to grow.
I really love what you're saying because I teach that to people all the time as well when I'm helping them in their businesses and really helping them expand. And so often, especially with small business owners, I have to really get them over fear. But even working with coaches and helping them build, and elevate their brand or raise their prices or, there's always this fear that comes along with it that I have to work them through. And why do you think people are so resistant to change? And I notice too, people as they get older even get more resistant to this. Sometimes it's very difficult working with older business owners that have always been doing it this way. It's very difficult sometimes for them to want to make the changes and really evolve with what's happening around them in the world around them. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, as we know, this year has been so unique, right? We're in a constant,
lightly.
Yes, everything around us is changing. And so, I love to work through generation gaps because right now, as you know more than anyone, we have more generations in one workforce at the same time than we ever had, right?
It's crazy, yes. Absolutely.
And so when you have that baby boomer mentality working with a millennial or Gen Z, Gen X, whichever, there's a different style. So the different ways that we have to onboard those people, the different way we interact with them, the different way we do reviews and all of that changes. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in our way that our way is the right way that prohibits us from moving forward and making a change that could be very beneficial.
Mhm. Right. And I have often found too that some of the hardest things that I've gone through, some of the biggest fears, when I got on the other side of those, were the greatest rewards. I mean, those things wouldn't have happened had I not gone through, that journey. And so I always believe that when things are put in our path, there typically is always something so much better that we just can't see. But it is that breakthrough. I think when you get used to doing it though, and maybe is it a learned skill? Because I there's not much that I'm really afraid of or afraid to try or do.
I think it's a mindset, right? I think you and I, with our industries, we coach on that. We learn about that all the time. It's having that right attitude, and that's huge. Right now with COVID, we're wearing masks, but quite frankly, we're all wearing masks of deception sometimes when we're not vulnerable or authentic. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we cannot unveil what our true feelings or thoughts are, and I'm not saying spread your dirty laundry out to your employees, but let them know this is new territory. We've got to adjust. We've got to pivot. Some people hate that word pivot. We've used it so much.
We've used it a lot, right? Right. It's probably on every podcast if you go back and listen to all the episodes, right?
Right. We just hashtag pivot and we'll come up with a variety. Yes. But it is so true when we can be a little bit vulnerable and say, look, we don't know what tomorrow brings, but the past is the past and we can't change it. What we can do is we can learn and we can grow from it. And then now we can maneuver into our future in a different way.
Yes. And I really like what you're saying, because I think it's so important that people realize that so much good can come from situations that don't look good at all. I mean, they look like, oh my gosh, doom and gloom, and what are we going to do? And, it's like when I'm working with people in their business, I'm always saying, don't focus on the problem, let's focus on the solution. And, but with that, they go through a lot of fear, because now you're talking about really them getting into new territory or doing things that they've never done before. If you're talking about new solutions, that's probably something very out of their comfort zone. So I really like that you're hitting on this. What are some strategies that people can use to overcome fear? And I know we're basically talking to anyone, but let's talk about maybe in business. You started your own business coming from corporate, 30 years in corporate, and yes, you did all the moving parts of a corporate structure, but bringing that into your own business, all of a sudden you're responsible for everything, including your income. Talk a little bit about that and the fear of that.
There is a lot of fear with that, right? We wear so many different hats, but what we can't fear is, sometimes people are fearful of saying they don't know or they want help. That's a powerful, sexy thing to do, is to ask for help, right? Because you can't be an expert in everything. You can't be a master of everything. It's great to be knowledgeable of the different departments or the different phases of the business, but it's okay to ask for help so that you can be more efficient, you can be more productive, you can do those things better and get the results quicker, right?
That's a really good point, because so many people in business, they're afraid they'll look, stupid, or they're afraid that somebody will think poorly of them, or even especially as a coach or a consultant. I think a lot of people think they need to have all the answers and they need to know it all. But, my favorite thing is, look, if I don't know, I will find out. We'll find a way, or, we'll find out the right answer for that. But it's okay to do that. It's okay to say that. And like you said, it's in integrity and it's being more authentic.
Well, and I love working with mid-level professionals, management that, they're either frustrated with their team or they're frustrated with their work and they think they need to jump ship or they're not satisfied. But really, it's not that. It's restructuring where you're at and let's figuring out what it is that we enjoy and we're really good at and what is it that we're not. And with some of my managers, they don't know properly how to delegate, especially when you throw in the mix of the different generations.
Mm-hmm.
But and some people are more micromanagers. We hear that word thrown around
Sure.
a lot. But quite frankly, delegation is empowering someone else. You're giving them a gift. It's not a disciplinary thing like I'm tossing more work on them. Yeah, it is actually. But what it's actually also doing is it's empowering them to be a better employee.
Yes. No, absolutely. And all of those skills are valuable in every area of your life anyway. So when you develop all of those skills, even in a corporate job, they will translate into other opportunities and other things that maybe you can't even see at that time. I always say, when you're working in a job, you're being paid to get educated. You're being paid to learn, really. And it's such a different mindset from, okay, this is my job and I have to go to it. I mean, I look at all the skills that I developed. I worked 13 years um, in corporate retail management, managing multi-million dollar departments, and all the skills and everything that I learned in that, I think were a lot of the things that, even though they didn't translate completely to owning my own business, they gave me the strength and the determination to want to go out on my own and to do my own thing and not be so afraid of that, you fail a lot of times in life, right?
And by you taking that risk, and look at how many people's lives you have affected by taking that risk.
Oh my goodness, that's exactly right, including my own and my family's, but you're right. I mean, thousands and thousands of, couldn't even put a number on it, to be quite honest. So no, you're absolutely right. And there's always a bigger plan. But you also spoke about something like they might want to get out. They're having issues and they might want to get out. The one thing that I do know is the grass is not always greener. And it sounds like you really help people navigate those decisions and those choices to make the right decision. Is that right?
Yeah, so I have a success path, and every individual is customized, but there is still a success path to get to that creation and evolution of where they want to be. What's that magic wand? What do they want their ideal job to look like? And sometimes it doesn't take long for me to be able to figure out the value that they possess at the company that they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can structure something that can work for everybody. And I had a client just the other week. She thought for sure she's, cutting the ties and moving on and everything else. And sure enough, her manager is helping her invest in coaching and doing all of these things when she was willing to do it on her own and go for it. But the fact is, now we're reshaping her team, and she's happy and she's productive, and her boss is happy, and her team is happy. So it's just funny that the grass is only just a different shade.
I agree. Yellow or
brown today.
Right. No, I think that's such a valid point. Look, there are going to be obstacles and hurdles and challenges and fear and all of those things with anything that you do in life, anything. And so if you don't learn how to navigate that where you are, it's not going to help you to do something different, because it's going to come up again. I really believe that. And I think that's the one thing, being an entrepreneur for 29 years that I have learned. Look, there's always going to be another challenge. You have to learn how to get through that, and you have to be empowered by them. And I love change, so that does not bother me at all. I used to drive my employees crazy, in my businesses, and they would be like, quit going away, because you come back with these ideas and then we have to change things. So, but I do think people are on one side of the fence or the other. They either love it or they really resist it. Do you find that too?
Absolutely. In fact, in my book, I mentioned that I have an addiction to change, right? I've grown up living in a lot of different states and a couple countries and just different things. So it's always been part of my life. But in my first marriage, that wasn't part of his life. So it's kind of like you're attracted to that opposite thing, right? So you really work on trying to have that yin and that yang so that you can balance each other out. And sometimes if you do it properly, it works well. And then other times you just have to move on.
Right. So tell us some strategies that you use when you're helping people kind of navigate through all of this.
I think a lot of change that is not welcomed with people is because they don't have a clear roadmap. So I think a lot of times we're driving blind, and I use the analogy, what if you got behind the wheel of your car with a blindfold on?
Mm-hmm.
You might know the areas in the roads well enough to try to creep and crawl and get there some way, somehow, but you're not going to get there the most effective way, the most efficient way. And you're not going to know where your levels are, when you need to take an exit ramp, right, to get maintenance and tune up and all of that. The analogy can keep going on, right? We need that in work and in our careers to know, do I know where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
And if I do, I can navigate that change a little bit easier by knowing what's expected of me. What are my 3 big rocks? What do I need to focus on most importantly to get the job done? What can be put aside for now? And just having that clear expectation, whether it's from your mission, vision, and values as an organization, whether it's through succession planning for an entrepreneur or whatever that looks like, we need to know, where are we headed? How do you want me to get there? Which route's going to be quickest?
Mm-hmm.
And is it the same route you would take? Because if it's not, then we need to reevaluate and communicate a little bit differently, because there's a disconnect and we're going to end up in 2 different states if we're not on the same path.
Right. No, I think that's really important. And obviously when I'm working with people, the first thing I ask them is, look, what does it look like to you? What do you want? A lot of times people don't even really know that, because they don't take the time to really figure those things out. And so a lot of frustration often comes from them not really knowing what they're trying to accomplish. Because when you have a plan, everything is so much easier. It doesn't mean you're not going to go through some things, but it's so much easier when you have a plan versus flailing around and being all over the place. And then, like you said, not even ending up where you would like to be. So I like that. Those are good.
And this year, though, the other thing I used to tell the people I managed at one time is, nothing's set in cement. If you have a better idea or something, nothing's set in stone. And gosh, we all know this year, nothing was set in stone. Everything was new.
Oh my goodness. If businesses didn't find that out this year, they never will, right?
Right.
It's definitely been a year for shifting. And even it's really interesting, even though this podcast is more for entrepreneurs and small business owners, it's really interesting to see what the corporate landscape is going to be like after this. I think it's going to, even small businesses, there are rapid changes going on in small businesses. And I don't think business is ever going to be the same or run the same way or even done the same way.
I think you're absolutely 100% correct on that. I think the reboarding is going to be so critical, onboarding, and now you're reboarding. It's a different mindset. It's going to be a different dynamic. And now the recent news too, we may be going through some more changes. Who knows?
Sounds like it. Yes. So those are all things too, that, even external things that are happening affect people, obviously internally, that, could really stop them in their tracks. And I see this with small business owners a lot. I always say, look, you're not a victim of your economy or of anything going on around you. As a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, we can create our own economy. And it may not be exactly the course that you thought you were going to, go on, but you have that opportunity to make those shifts that you need to make to still thrive in any situation, really. You have to innovate, you have to be willing to make those changes. And what would you say to someone who isn't? Like, I talk to people online all the time, and they're sort of sitting there waiting. They're like, well, I just want. Well, what are you doing about that? Are you just waiting for things to turn around and change? Or are you trying to look for innovative ways that you can do things differently? I see a lot of people doing that.
And I think that's, again, the fear of the unknown, that complacency attitude. But I think as a business owner or an entrepreneur or someone, we have to have transparency when we're dealing with people who we're wanting to do business with or who work for us. There has to be transparency. Look, especially with all the companies that had to furlough and let go of, employees and things, the more transparent they can be, the more respect they're going to have in order to make the shifts that they need to make. But it all starts from the top, right? We have to have a clear mission, vision, and values. And if the lowest employee on your ladder doesn't know what those are, then there's a disconnect in the communication around those, right? So, and maybe they just need to be refocused because maybe they're not truly at heart what they really feel are their core values of the organization.
No, I like this. I love what you're saying, because in a way you're sort of bringing those big corporate ideas and that big corporate mindset and the way they're structured, and you're kind of sharing that with, hey, you can do this in a small business, or as an entrepreneur, you can use those same techniques and strategies and ideas to make your business really run better. And I think often in small business, especially, there is a lot of disconnect between what the owners, think their company should be and what they're having their employees do. There just is a very different mindset about small business. A lot of times they're just trying to keep their head above water. Yeah. So,
and I talk about that in the book too. I made the mistake. I'm guilty of it, where, if there's not clear transparency about what's going on when there's major shift going on,
yes,
then that manager is fighting the wrong battle because they don't see the whole battlefield. And so I spent a lot of time working on something that I thought was top priority for my employees' sake and the company's sake, when in essence, it really wasn't at all, because I didn't know behind the curtain what was going on where Oz was. So that's important.
No, I think that's a really good point too, because a lot of times as owners and even in, corporate management, they keep things from people. And, they're trying to handle it, like you said, kind of behind the curtain or behind the scenes. And the one thing that I have always found is that in my businesses, when I went through struggles, to share with my employees, so many great ideas would come out of that. It didn't make me feel weaker or less than as an owner. I mean, I was learning how to be a good owner too, and how to run a business and how to build a business. I never claimed to be some expert. I was like every other small business owner. I started it and it grew, and I did everything I could along the way to learn what to do. But a lot of great ideas would come from that transparency and saying, hey, this is a problem, or this is what we're struggling with, or even a competitor coming in, that we had to all of a sudden make shifts or pivot and figure out, okay, what are we going to do different? Because this is impacting us. But to have those conversations with them, great things would come out of that. And so those are important things to know when you're in business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are some takeaways that you can give our listeners today to help them break through fear? Right now, I know there is a lot of fear out there, and there's a lot of fear if, a lot of places aren't even fully opened yet. A lot of, there's even fear that it's going to be shut down again when the new president, whoever takes over at this point. And so I know that there is a lot of fear out there because people are thinking we can't go through another 2020. Do you have any suggestions or things that can help them?
I think the biggest fear right now is just that sense of isolation, whether it's an employee or a business owner or manager, and they have to break free from that in order to embrace change. Mm-hmm. I often think of the person that gets on the airplane and then they're putting their earplugs in and they're disconnecting and they just want isolation. And at times there's nothing wrong with that, but you miss opportunities of learning from the person next to you or someone else that has some input. So when it comes to business or employees, this fear of us working from home all the time or having to have part of the staff at home and some of them a skeleton crew on and all of that, there's this isolation because they don't know what they don't know. And that's been our theme for the year, right? Mm-hmm. So I think if they can just understand by asking questions, keeping an open mind, taking the step, dip the toe in the water and see how that goes. There are certain decisions that have to be black and white, but there's other decisions that can be engaging with employees. It's kind of like if I have 4 people in the room and we order a pizza, we can get 4 different toppings and everybody's happy. But there's other times it's got to be the pepperoni pizza and that's all we're doing, depending on what the situation is. So it's just a matter of just really being open to hearing other perspectives and being able to adjust and adapt based on what the environment predicts.
No, I like that. And, one of the things that people don't realize that, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, if I have to do another Zoom call, if I have to do another networking meeting on Zoom, if I have to, and I just think, what if we didn't have this? I mean, people are just not looking at it right. First of all, I'm online all the time. So I have learned, I love it. To me, us having this conversation, I'm closer to you on here than I am if I were sitting in front of you, right? So it's all perspective and it's all attitude. And granted, it's not like being right with somebody, being able to touch or hug or, shake hands or whatever. But what if we didn't have this? I just think people are looking at it wrong. It's such a blessing that we have technology. For many years when I was building my businesses, I didn't have the internet. I didn't have all of these tools and things that we have today that can help us run our businesses. So you have to really embrace that, and it's not going away. So you might as well,
right?
It's one of those things you're going to have to do, right?
And I think if you've ever seen that whole change curve, the different wave of emotions that go through when change happens, we go through anger and we go through acceptance, we go through all of those different changes. I think the good thing that's come out of COVID and this past year, if there's anything that's been good, is that people have had to sit back a bit and not be as impatient for certain things to happen. I get upset sometimes when my internet goes down because I rely on Zoom for my clients and things too. But it's like something goes wrong, you're like, oh gosh. But gosh, like you said, how often has technology really advanced us? And we're moving forward. It's just we're able to sit back and realize there's going to be some hiccups. We're going to get over it, but we've got to be open-minded to what's coming in.
That's right. And I think you said it best. We have to be open-minded because it is going to be different. When all of this, start getting through all this, it is still going to be different. There will be things that won't go back. I believe there will be a lot of corporations, for example, that won't have big buildings. I believe that they'll still allow people to work from home and things will be done remotely. And they realize they don't need all of that, I think that's what we're going to see shifts in all kinds of businesses as a result of this. So you might as well embrace it and, learn to work through it and figure out, okay, what's the better side of this versus I don't really like this. And it's, you always have to look for the good in it, I think.
Right. And by remaining in that negative space, then all you do is stay stuck. And if you've ever been stuck in the mud or stuck in the snow, you can't get out of it alone. You need help to maneuver out, and looking forward and being positive about what are we going to learn from this? How are we going to grow from this? How it's going to impact us? Kind of like that wheel of change that I talked about in the beginning.
Right.
That can be really good.
Do you think that going through all of this with 2020, do you think people have been more open online? Before people seem to be a little more closed off. And do you think, I think that's some of the good that's come from it. I think people have been a lot more relational and a lot more open. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I've been on a variety of group Zoom calls, but you're still going to have a lot of those that keep the camera off. They're not as engaged. They shut down. They don't, they're not doing that. So I think that is something that has to be set up based on the direction of how the call is going to be going. Sometimes it's okay to be off camera, but if you really want that camaraderie and community, you need to stay on camera so that you can connect and engage and get input. Mm-hmm. It depends on the management style. You probably see that more than I do is, if the management style is just dictating what their agenda is and going through bullet points.
Right.
Then they're not interested in getting any communication. So they don't really care if they're looking or not. So
I always say, if they have the camera off, they're probably eating or they're doing something else that they don't want to be seen. Right. But no, I think to your point, I think that, with management, like it's more critical now. I think that you're kind of getting those relationships going two ways, and that you are allowing people to really interject and be part of the conversation, because it is a very different thing. It's kind of like, I know the schools right now, are struggling with kids being engaged. kids, and so I saw the cutest video come up on Facebook a couple of days ago of this teacher, and it went viral because she was absolutely phenomenal. Like, you couldn't even quit watching her. And I thought, she has engaged kids. There's no doubt about it. She just was keeping them entertained the whole time she was teaching to them. And I'm sure that's why, that is why it went viral. But that is really what it's going to take, to kind of navigate this whole online thing, I think.
Well, and to that point, I think as a manager or a business owner, the question you could ask for a quick reference point is, are my employees excited to see me next, or are they avoiding seeing me next? And with that little child in that Facebook video, that kid can't wait to see his teacher again.
Right.
You want to be that leader and that manager that, I love it when my boss wants to have a meeting with me. I get to learn something new instead of, oh, great, what did I do wrong? And
right.
What's going to happen now, or what more work are we going to have? If you do that little test to yourself, maybe it helps you become a better leader.
That's great information for people. And I think that's really something for them to think about. We have covered a lot of good stuff here today. That's one of the things I love about these organic interviews is that, so many things come out that you really just can't plan for, and, just being conversational. So you have shared so much gold here. What are some ways that people can get a hold of you? And is there any kind of a resource that you would like to share with my audience that they can get?
Absolutely. So my website is buildyouup.net, and it's build the letter U and the letter U again, p.net. I have a free download for a career assessment wheel, and I also have one for managers. So feel free to download that. It gives you kind of that wheel of life look where you can monitor and see, maybe I'm not as good here as I thought I was. Maybe I'm here, and you can rank those. So feel free to do that. I do have the book Teetering that's out on Amazon. And it's also on the website, so you can check that out, or send me an email. I'd love to have a Zoom meeting or talk with someone that might have an interest in just talking.
Very nice. And we will put everything with the show notes. So no worries about all of your links, and everything will be there for people. So anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
Don't fear change. It can be good. So we can conquer this thing. And I'm not saying everything's lollipops and rainbows in the sky, but we can move forward with assurance that if we do our due diligence, change can be for the good.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on here with me today, Tina. This has been great. I know my listeners will get a lot of value from this. So thank you. And to everyone else, until next time, thank you for joining us for another episode. And I can't wait to release this video for you to see, and go rock your business. You have an amazing day. God bless you.